One of the things that I wish I'd done more in my work experience was like setting clearer goals. That often I'd go into the work experience or like go into the insight day or the session and to be like, oh, I'm here to get a day out of class. Like it's just a day out of the school building. It's a day out of my normal routine. I'm just here to experience. But I think to get the most out of the work experience and out of all the time and energy that's been putting into it, I needed to have like set those clear goals, have said, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want to achieve. This is what I want to get out of, or this is a skill I want to work on.
Hello and welcome to Let's Make It Work, the podcast, showcasing voices from across the sector, all united by one mission, making modern work experience truly possible for every young person. Let's Make It Work aims to inform and inspire educators and employers about the art of the possible, share real-life examples and tangible takeaways you can implement in your own settings, and importantly, to acknowledge the systemic barriers many of you face while offering real-world solutions that work now. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, subscribe and share our channel. It helps more educators, employers and partners join this movement. I'm Sian, your host. I'm part of the education development team at the Careers and Enterprise Company. I've been a teacher, a head of year. I've worked across a large multi-academy trust supporting careers leaders to implement a trust-wide careers and employability strategy. And I've also worked in the private sector, so I've seen firsthand the potential of connecting young people with the world of work for the mutual benefit of learners, education and employers. Our guests today are Anna Morrison CBE, the Director of Amazing Apprenticeships, and Sophie Brown, a current Solicitor Apprentice from Stevenson Harwood LLP and co-chair of CEC's Youth Advisory Group. Today's episode is all about the work experience to apprenticeship pipeline. How can it demystify and open doors to different pathways? So let's dive in and let's make it work. Thank you both for joining us today. Really great to see you. Could you tell us a little bit about who you are and your connection to apprenticeships?
Yes, so I'm Anna Morrison. I'm the founder and director of Amazing Apprenticeships. Hopefully, lots of schools using our resources because we create lots of free resources for schools and colleges and other settings to use to help to inspire and inform students and families and teachers about apprenticeships and technical education. So we've got a big website, get involved in lots of campaigns throughout the year, and just try to do whatever we can to raise awareness about apprenticeships and what a brilliant pathway it can be for young people.
Thank you.
I'm Sophie. I'm a Solicitor Apprentice. I started my apprenticeship in 2024 and I'm also a member of the Youth Advisory Group here at the CEC. So I get involved in the CEC's work for making the systems better from a student and young person's perspective, as well as the lived experience as an apprentice, going from the work experience from schooling straight into my apprenticeship.
Oh, we're so grateful to have you both here and just to, like you say, to hear your experience of being an apprentice now, how you got into it. We'll definitely get into that today. Let's just start by thinking about that kind of a work experience to apprenticeship pipeline. And what does that phrase mean to each of you personally?
So I suppose for me, when I think about work experience or experiences of the workplace, then I think what's really the opportunity that offers for individuals is when they're going into businesses, they get to visit workplaces, have conversations with employers and colleagues, and really start to find out about the breadth of roles and opportunities that are out there. And I think that's got to be one of the most valuable things of work experience is kind of making it real and being able to go in and see it and feel it and experience it is crucial. And I think what that does for apprenticeships is it opens everyone's eyes about the types of careers that are out there, but also the different ways that you access them, and the kind of squiggly career paths. And once you start talking to people in the workplace and hearing about how they got into what they're doing and why they love the job that they're doing, I think you can really then see that light bulb in young people's eyes, particularly of like, oh, okay, I'd never thought of it like that, or I didn't even know that job existed. That sounds really interesting. Kind of find out more. So it sparks that curiosity.
Yeah, I think I'd echo the same thing. It's transformative. The work experience is the moment where your eyes open, where you see it in real life and understand this is what I could do. this is a real thing, this is a real opportunity for me, and this could be me in 5-10 years. It's for me, it was the moment where my eyes opened, where the light bulb went up, and when I realised that apprenticeships was an option and this career path was something I could do.
And that was part of a work experience opportunity.
Yeah. I think I was at a firm called Mayer Brown, and it was a panel, actually. So part of the work experience was that we had conversations with some of the employees. And one of them was an apprentice called Cyril. He's an amazing, amazing speaker, and absolutely like stunned me. And to think that he was only a year older than me, 2 years older than me, and he was doing it and he was living it. It was the opportunity. It was like, oh, Cyril can do it. I can do it. He looks like me. He could be me. The work experience it's there. The opportunity's there.
And there's just so much value in those conversations.
Yeah, I think the relationships are always the decisive thing.
And if we think about that moment of choice that a lot of young people have at school when they're thinking about different pathways, might be university, could be an apprenticeship, a different technical education option. Could you say a little bit about that moment from your own experience?
The moment in making the choice. Yeah. I think my choice was really late on. I don't know if other apprentices you've experienced had the choice late on. I applied to university, and I was fully prepared to go down that route, and it was something I was very happy to be doing. It was a choice I'd made, and then I got the call from the employer, from the firm, saying, "Hey, we loved your interview. We'd love for you to join us and be part of our community." And that was really the moment I made the choice. But having options open was always a thing, and having university place as well as the apprenticeship place was a toss up between choosing.
I love that. I love that they framed it as, we want you to be part of our community.
Yeah.
That is such just a great and exciting offer, isn't it? So could you say a bit more about that? Because we talk about the headlines of apprenticeships, about kind of earning at the same time as learning. But actually that being part of a community, the opportunity to join an employer and that sense of belonging.
Yeah. So it's more than just a workplace, it's a community. And I think one of the worries of students sometimes going in is that they might lose that community, that you go from school where you see your friends every day and you by default have a community because you're always with people, to going into apprenticeship. You're in a workplace and people much older, often, not always, but sometimes much older employees. I worried, and I know other people have worried, that going into apprenticeship means losing that community, but it really wasn't the case. There's lots of juniors in my firm, and it was adopted into it. My first day, there was like a welcome event, and there was like cupcakes and champagne, and everyone came down and like was speaking to you and happy for you to be there. It was community. It was, feeling welcomed.
And Anna, how does that feel from your perspective? Does any of that resonate with you as an employer?
Absolutely. It's great to hear as well, isn't it? I mean, it sounds like the dream employer. The cupcakes, the welcome, also that sense of community, and being able to go into an organisation where you've got other individuals that you can kind of make friends with and have social events with, as well as enjoy who you're working with. And I think everyone seeks that at all stages and ages, actually, not just when you leave school, but I guess that's the biggest transition, isn't it? I think one of the things that young people often tell us when they first go into an apprenticeship is the change of routine can be quite a lot to get your head around. So, if you're in a school environment where bells ring to tell you when to stand up and leave a room, when your breaks are, when you get a chance to eat, sometimes then going into the workplace and having absolute kind of freedom, or employers saying, right, here's our boundaries, you work it out in between there, or, this is a piece of work that needs to be done, manage your own deadlines. That can be quite a struggle to begin with for some apprentices. And I think that's where work experience really links in, because you get a taste of that sometimes in work experience where you start to get used to that. And I suppose understand if you're going to be comfortable with that as well, and start to reflect a little bit for yourself as a young person. Can I see myself here? Do I like this kind of environment? Being around other people, perhaps, am I getting energy from that? Am I enjoying it? am I starting to decide what some of those choices might be for me later down the line?
Definitely. And like you said earlier, having the opportunity to experience, through work experience, different routes and talk to people about how they have ended up in their current career. And people will inevitably have taken different pathways.
Definitely. And I think what I love about the changes that are coming for work experience is this idea of it being perhaps shorter, but more varied, so that you get to go into even more workplaces. But I think that's really exciting, because now young people potentially are going to be able to go into more workplaces or have more interactions with employers and their colleagues, and really start to build a bigger picture of the different types of careers that are out there. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, and kind of seeing the difference that that's going to have for young people and the choices they then make, and the questions they start asking about apprenticeships as well.
It's just so great to hear from you both on this. And I think what you've just said there, Anna, about if we can, as a system, as educators, as employers, apprenticeship providers, design experiences of the workplace that are underpinned by learning outcomes, learning objectives that are related to skills, like you just said, learning about different sectors and different jobs, but also that pathway angle. And it links back to something that Bobby was saying on the previous episode around going in as a young person with that confidence and that curiosity to ask those questions. So that's kind of linked to what I wanted to ask you both next around what can we do as a system, as educators? What more could we do to prepare young people to go into hopefully multiple meaningful experiences of the workplace with that view of finding out more about different pathways?
One of the things that I wish I'd done more in my work experience was like setting clearer goals. That often I'd go into the work experience or like go into the insight day or the session and to be like, oh, I'm here to get a day out of class. Like it's just a day out of the school building. It's a day out of my normal routine. I'm just here to experience. But I think to get the most out of the work experience and out of all the time and energy that's been putting into it, I needed to have like set those clear goals, have said, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want to achieve. This is what I want to get out of, or this is a skill I want to work on.
That kind of reflection piece, kind of recognizing, I couldn't do that before I went in, and now I can, or I've at least learnt something that I can do towards kind of building that skill. Yeah. And I guess that varies across settings, and the Equal X framework will start to bring some consistency with all of that. And it's going to take time, isn't it? Because it's a real culture change for businesses and schools and young people to start to really think, I don't know, we've planned work experience and we always try to make it fun and engaging. I'm not sure that we've always focused as much as a business on, and what skills are we developing, or where are the reflection points in these activities. So that's going to take a bit of time, I think, for employers to start to learn how to do that.
Yeah, like you say, there's definite value to be had, isn't there, in being in different workplaces, but just being a bit more intentional as a young person going into that experience, or as an educator designing it, hopefully collaborating, co-designing with an employer. Brilliant. So thinking about the role of work experience in kind of opening eyes to different possibilities. You've said a lot about this already, but just thinking back to the different kinds of work experiences you had, Sophie, could anything have been more useful to you earlier on, or anything different that might have opened your eyes to different pathways earlier on?
I think I did like almost all types of the work experience. So I did the block week, and that was in secondary school, where I went to a staffing agency and I sat there, and I did the single like insight days. And then in sixth form, I then went out on my own and found like work experience that was being offered. The earliest experience, so that 1 week block, it was quiet, and because it was quiet, there was nothing for me to do. So I ended up shredding paper. And as much as now I know how to use a shredder,
good reflection, right?
Yeah, good reflection. I know how to use the shredder, but I don't think the 1 week block of it not being my style of work, of me going in on day 2 being, I don't think this is what I want to do. I don't love it, and it's not engaging. That wasn't my best experience. In itself, saying that wasn't my best experience is valuable because it's crossed something off the list. But definitely going forward, the day's experience that I had in in my secondary school later on, of having insight days with different types of employers or different industries. That was definitely more valuable because it wasn't me sitting there shredding stuff, and it was short enough that I could get a taste of lots. Yeah.
I think you just beautifully captured the value of multiple experiences and building that kind of confidence and that vision for what you want to get out of it.
Yeah, and I suppose just to reassure you, you know, I'm out there talking to businesses all the time who are saying we really do want to get involved in this. There does seem to be this sense of willingness from employers, but they just need enough time, I think, to be able to plan properly and get their heads around what's needed. And most employers, almost all employers, really want to take this seriously and do a good job, because at the end of the day, you're showcasing your business. You want it to be a great positive experience for those students, regardless if they decide whether to pursue a career in that industry or not. No one wants it to be a waste of time or to be kind of reflected on as, well, I don't really know why I was doing that. So yeah.
it's an investment of time, isn't it, on both parts?
Definitely.
And actually having that shared understanding of what those outcomes are, those intended outcomes are, is really helpful on both sides. And I think you've touched on such an important point around that kind of logistics of the whole work experience, being very intentional about this is an opportunity to learn about different pathways, including apprenticeship. So there's a lot to manage, but hopefully, like you said, EqualX and frameworks like that will support with it. And I think that everything you've said about the preparation, the reflection, and then kind of keeping a track of who's done what at a school level, so you can really make sure that that journey for that individual young person is adding the most value to kind of help them get to a point where you can make a really informed decision. So from your point of view, Anna, what are some of the really kind of great examples that you've seen of where work experience really does open doors to apprenticeships?
I think kind of the ultimate is when someone on work experience gets to spend time with an apprentice to really see what it's like. That's brilliant. We know that's not always going to be possible, but I think when those early conversations are happening with employers, to really perhaps just have that added question, do you have any apprentices working with you? And could our students spend some time with that apprentice? Brilliant. That would be fantastic. I think I like the variety. So the way we often work experience in our company is we will rotate students between different teams. That means as a small business, not all of the pressure is on one particular team or department. And I think that gives a bit of variety for the students. We also, if we can, like to have students in from different schools at the same time. And we see some really interesting dynamics when that happens, kind of not massive numbers, but if if a school approaches us and says, right, could you take someone? And then another school does, we say, right, we've got 2 requests for year 10 students, let's bring them both in. And then we get them to work on a task together. That can be really beneficial as well. So they're getting kind of added value, I think, from being able to work with someone that they probably have never met before, as well as the colleagues in the team. If we do a week of work experience, we will often structure it so it's a slightly later start and an earlier finish, which allows my teams and my managers to kind of catch their breath at either end of the day and make sure that we're really set up properly. And if we're bringing students in who have additional needs, or actually we started this because we had students coming in with additional needs and neurodivergence, and then we thought this is actually working really well, so we've now implemented it for all of our work experience students that come in. And we do a video of so basically someone like walking through the front door, up the stairs, into the office, and walking around to show what our office is like, but also for each member of the team to kind of wave and say hello. And we found that that's really helped to take some of the nerves out of the first day. Kind of, oh, all right, I can see those are the facilities they've got. We talked to them about where you can get your lunch, our toilet facilities, what to wear. We try to think about all of those questions that an individual might have and think, how can we take some of the fear out of this?
Yeah, the little things can sometimes be the big things.
Massive. Where am I going to sit to have my lunch is kind of one of the biggest questions.
It is, yeah. I think my first day, like in an office, was like, oh, okay, so I've got out the train and you have to take the right exit out. So it's already overwhelming. I'm already like thinking about the time, and I'm trying to look at my Google Maps and figure out where I'm going. And then like you get to the door and it's like, okay, now what do I do? Who do I talk to? And you walk up to a desk and there's multiple companies in the building, and you just say, oh, I'm here for this. And they're like, so which company are you here for? Which floor are you? Yeah, it's so overwhelming. It's especially as a student and it being the first place you've ever gone. And I remember my first day, there was like white marble floors. And I was terrified I was going to scuff the floor. I was like terrified that my shoes would squeak too loud and I'd leave a mark, and everyone would look at me, and that I wouldn't know how to speak to the receptionists, and I would take the lift to the wrong floor. It's overwhelming. It's really like energy draining.
And I just love that you're thinking about that inclusion angle, Anna, as an employer.
Yeah.
And do you, I'm sure you do, because you are absolutely so experienced and all of your expertise in creating amazing apprenticeships. So can you just say a little bit more around that kind of inclusion angle? I've seen recently kind of supported apprenticeships, inclusive apprenticeships, adapted apprenticeships. Could you just say a little bit more about this?
Sure. I suppose in a nutshell, what that means is really making sure that we're maxing out all of the different ways that individuals can be supported through an apprenticeship. So there have been some big changes in apprenticeships over the last few years around things like English and maths. And if an individual previously had an EHCP, then that kind of unlocked certain flexibilities that were enabled. But what we started to identify in apprenticeships, and this will be no surprise to the educators out there, but there were lots of people coming through apprenticeships with additional support needs, but perhaps had never gone through that kind of diagnosis process, or really understanding, oh, actually, I'm really good at that, but I might need a bit of help in that. So there's been some big changes in apprenticeships where training providers now, through their initial assessment processes, are really helping apprentices to identify where they might need some additional support. I think beyond that as well, we're also seeing employers making really big changes to how they recruit and the different processes that they put in place. So whether that's providing interview questions in advance, or just making sure that they're asking that question really early on to say, do you have any support needs? Or it could say, do you require any reasonable adjustments? But we're trying to get them away from that kind of understanding that lots of young people might not really be familiar with that kind of terminology, but saying, how can we help you be your best, is probably language that they can understand. And that can be applied in work experience as well. So if you have an application process, or if there's a form that could go to a student beforehand to say, how can we help you? Is there anything that you have in school that we could continue in the workplace for you? Then that can be really good practice. It's being really well received out there. And I think then it encourages employers and providers to do even more and think about how else they can support. So we know employers, for example, if they run insight days, they may offer quiet hours, or they may have smaller group sessions for people who may be overwhelmed if it was a big group. They will explain how you might be able to bring someone with you on interview day to support you, or to an assessment centre. I think just across the board, we're getting better now at really thinking about where some of those anxieties can be, how people may have previously not felt that they could really participate in some of the different processes before apprenticeships and whilst they're on programme. And those barriers are slowly kind of being taken away and re-looked at. I think it's quite an exciting area of work at the moment.
Thank you. That is so good to hear, and just really great to hear from your perspective as well, Sophie, around that kind of how it felt walking in, and just the reassurance of just being said that, you know, you can sit here or take some time out for 5 minutes. And it's just really, really great to hear it from both sides. Thank you. Can I just pick up on something you said about recruitment and kind of demystifying certain elements of apprenticeships, and what you said there was just brilliant around kind of just explaining a little bit more about what the questions might be. Is there anything else that you think that work experience might be useful for, to demystify that maybe some misconceptions that young people might have?
Yeah, well, I suppose the biggest one is you're in the workplace, so you can say to the employers what really impresses you when people are applying to work with you, and kind of what do you look for in candidates. You're there to get information that no one else is going to get.
Yeah, there's so many layers in the solicitor apprenticeship applications, and it varies firm to firm. So you apply for one place and they do this and they do a phone interview, but then this person does a video interview. And
how many did you apply for?
I applied to 13 firms. Yeah, so a lot. And I always tell apprentices, aspiring apprentices, don't apply to any more than like 20 because it's intense.
And when you've applied for 13, that
is
quite useful information to know in advance.
I had like the Excel doc and...
Good, because we say to people, get a good tracker in place. Like, you've got to get organised with the admin, because there's a lot of admin. And if everyone you apply to starts coming back with different dates and deadlines and links and things you need to do, you've got to be on top of it, because you don't want to miss one of those when you've put in all of that effort and you've got that far. But it's a lot to track. It
is, yeah. And I think one of the things that was hard was getting those emails back and it being, oh, unfortunately, we're sorry to tell you. And I think one of the skills that I wish I had better, I wish I had like developed more before that point, was the resilience of like, okay, I got a rejection email and this one isn't for me. I need to go to my next interview now and I need to be ready. And I think maybe that's something that can be taught in the work experience programs.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to touch on barriers, and we've spoken about it a little bit, and that this is an exciting yet challenging change to the system if we're really going to kind of capitalise on all of these work experience opportunities. So thinking about some of the barriers that are in the system for educators, for employers, is there any advice you could give for educators or employers to kind of overcome some of the barriers in the system? And I suppose one of them would be that we've mentioned the kind of curriculum time. How do we design really good work experience that works for all young people?
Yeah, and recognising that employers will want to be part of that conversation as well. And each employer and what they can offer the school might be slightly different. So you may have a smaller business saying, right, I could definitely do a 3-hour session here for 20 students, or another employer saying, well, I'm happy to come in. I could do a talk for the whole year group, which might work, as I understand it, as an activity for some of the lower year groups. And I think it's starting to open up the dialogue. I was at a recent Careers Hub meeting and there were educators and employers at the table, and we were put into groups and we started to work through if we were going to design an activity for a year 9 group of students, and we needed to try and look at these indicators. How are we going to do that? And it was really interesting and it was really creative, and the employers loved it. They really enjoyed having that space to be creative, to reflect on their businesses, to think about what would and wouldn't work for them.
Just linking back to what we were saying earlier about potential tips for educators, and this absolute desire from all school leaders, careers leaders, for ambitious destinations for their leavers. How can we as a system kind of make sure that we're supporting young people into those ambitious destinations? So you mentioned that you went straight and you had that progression to level 7 for the opportunity you applied for at 18. I'm just thinking about a young person who's maybe at the end of year 11, who's considering options at the age of 16, and then thinking about, you know, what options are available, like, and what might some of those entry requirements be. So if we could just maybe pick up on that.
Yeah, sure. And there's so many options now, aren't there? And even more coming as well. And I suppose helping young people to see how that could connect. So if it's T-levels as a progression route into apprenticeships, it could be that they stay at school or go to college and then there's a progression onto an apprenticeship, or you can go straight into an apprenticeship. And all of those are fine, and no one option is better than the other. It's going to be what's right for that individual. And And you're right, kind of, there are lots of small businesses with apprenticeship vacancies. We'd like to see even more. And there's some big pieces of work happening to try and really support employers to create those positions. One of the things we're looking at is if an individual goes out on work experience and has a great time with that employer, and actually there's a match, and the employer saying, well, look, I was looking to take someone on, kind of how could we convert this into an apprenticeship? How can we make that feel easy? And how can we bring in all of that support, whether it's brokerage or signposting to someone else, or just explaining what the steps would be? If that is going to be a good progression, how can we enable that, and how could we help that to continue? Or it could be that an employer, there could be part-time work, or there could be opportunities that are coming up in school holidays, or I suppose just making that feel like it's more accessible and trying to demystify it a bit.
Yeah, I think like keeping the relationship, having them go back to that same employer and be like, oh yeah, I remember when I was here a couple months ago and it was amazing, and I vibed, you vibed, it was a match.
Right. So very interested now to hear about your dream work experience. We've spoken a lot about what could a really great modern work experience look like, kind of modern, multiple, meaningful experiences that are progressive. What would that look like for you, Anna?
So I think I'm quite lucky because I feel like I still get to do a bit of work experience. In the role that I'm in, I get to meet lots of employers, and they're really generous at letting me go and visit them and see behind the scenes. I absolutely love it. It's brilliant. So I don't think we stop learning, and that, so I'd encourage everyone kind of get out and see what's out there, because I really enjoy it. I've recently been to, I'm going to show off now. I've been to Jaguar Land Rover. I've been to Amazon. I went to Hotel Chocolat and I got to see their factory. Absolutely brilliant. And the amount of people I've then gone on to talk about the different roles, how technology is being used. I knew nothing about chocolate production before I went in. So I think kind of for me, it's just more of that. I said, right, I want to try and make sure I get out to an employer every month, because I love being able to see behind the scenes, talk to them. I suppose I'm having some of those strategic conversations about skills and planning and apprenticeships in the workforce and all of that. But alongside that, I'm getting to feel and experience businesses and see what those environments are like. And it's amazing. It's just so fascinating. I love it. And it gives me real energy and insight to be able to then reflect that in the work that we're doing.
Love that. And it relates back to something Nicola said on the previous episode around the value of teachers having work experience to be able to take that learning back into the classroom as well. So yeah, love that. Thank you. How about you, Sophie?
I'd love to have worked with one product and seen it through. So like gone from like the production, maybe so take chocolate, for example, like gone from the production team and then done a seat and some time with the legal team and then with finance, and been able to do my work experience around one product, but seeing all the parts that feed into it. I think that would be really cool. And especially in areas where it is somewhere where this is the main employer and this is the main industry in this area, in this region. It would be a great way to see the different parts and the different areas.
Yeah.
I know earlier we were speaking about like teaching and about education. It's not just you go into education, you become a teacher. And I think that's often what people view. You go into education, you become a teacher. You go into medicine, you become a doctor. You go into finance, you become a banker. That's not the truth. There are adjacent roles. There are things that students aren't aware of and they don't see. So being able to look at an industry and see different parts that feed into that industry, different roles that I could be part of, would be amazing. Yeah.
And some of those roles that are sometimes hidden away, they're not the most obvious ones. I love that. So great answer. You've got me thinking about supply chains and all sorts. Thank you so much, both of you. It's been wonderful talking to you.
And you, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank our guests today, Anna Morrison CBE, the Director of Amazing Apprenticeships, and Sophie Brown, a current Solicitor Apprentice. We discussed the lived experience of a current apprentice and a hosting employer, and what we can do collectively as employers and educators to really design and deliver inclusive experiences that help to build skills, confidence and awareness. For educators listening, where in the work experience journey do you see the biggest leverage point? one change that reliably improves progression into apprenticeships, and how are supported internships working alongside apprenticeships in your setting. We hope you found this episode helpful and interesting. Thank you for listening today. If you'd like any more information on the topics discussed, please find the Careers and Enterprise Company website linked below, and like, subscribe and share our channel. Send us your questions and thoughts to podcast@careersandenterprise.co.uk.